Hello, everybody. It's Oliver with Fat Guys on Fantasy, and this is another Fat Guys on Fantasy video update. We're going to be talking today a little bit about Chris Johnson and the history of 2,000-yard running backs in the NFL. We have had 6 2,000-yard running backs since the history of the NFL. Those running backs include O.J. Simpson, Eric Dickerson, Jamal Lewis, Chris Johnson now, Terrell Davis, and Barry Sanders. Doing a little research on this, there's a guy that comes on our show. He has his own podcast named Greg Kellogg on the Fantasy Sports Channel on Blog Talk Radio. He has really been on me and Kevin saying that Chris Johnson's going to have a down year. He's not going to repeat. So I did a little numbers research and started looking up some things for myself on the history of 2,000-yard running backs and the season after, where they went to after that. It's not always bad, but it's always down, as I found out. I'm going to start off with the worst case scenarios here. Probably would be Terrell Davis in 1998, 2,008 yards. We all remember that season. Great year the next year. Terrell Davis never really came back. He played 3 partial seasons after that, never hit 1,000 yards again. He was out of the NFL. Jamal Lewis is another prime example of that after running for 2,066 yards in 2003. The next year, he only plays 12 games. He gets 1,006 yards, only 7 touchdowns. Not a horrible year, but definitely severely down for the type running back people were looking for in fantasy in 2004. Barry Sanders is not really a bad example of this on yards, but for touchdowns, his production went really down. In 1997, he ran for 2,053 yards, 11 touchdowns. The following year, he ran for 1,491 yards and only 4 touchdowns, which was, then it'd be his last year. He retired after that. Looking over this history so far, it looks pretty bad. There are some good sides of this, though. O.J. Simpson, in his season in 1973, he ran for 2,003 yards. The following year, he still led the league in carries at 270, but he only had 1,025 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's horrible. Only 3 touchdowns after leading the league with 12. Now, after that, in 75, he came back and had 1,800 yards and 16 touchdowns. Everything was great again, but a pretty significant drop-off of almost 900 yards and 9 touchdowns. And another decent example of where a guy didn't really... Let's say he didn't really get hurt that much, but he did miss a couple of games, is Eric Dickerson. Because he was so young, when he ran for 2,000 yards in his second year, much like Chris Johnson, he ran for 2,105 yards, 14 touchdowns. He had 379 carries that year. The next year, in 14 games, he missed a couple. Excuse me. He ran for 1,234 yards, 12 touchdowns. The production on the touchdown side was still there, but the yards... Big drop off for the yards, 900 plus yards right there, just dropped right off, and he only missed 2 games. Looking over Chris Johnson's career, it kind of is modeling closer to Eric Dickerson than anybody. Will Chris Johnson have a bad year? No. Will he have a year like he had last year where he had 2,500 yards from the line of scrimmage? I don't think so. I don't see how you repeat a performance like this. He didn't have 370 carries, but he did have 358, and he had 50 receptions. That's something a lot of the guys who get 370 carries don't get. They don't get 50 receptions commonly. So he touched the ball over 400 times, and I would put a little warning out on Chris Johnson. Should you draft him first overall? Yes, he's Chris Johnson. But if you're at the top of your draft up there and you're looking at either him or Adrian Peterson, I don't know. If you believe in this 370 curse and the 2,000-yard curse, I'll go with Adrian Peterson. If you're not worried about it, go ahead and draft Chris Johnson. He's a great running back, and you can franchise him even if he gets injured. You know, if you're in a franchise league, you'll have him for years to come. This is Oliver, and this has been a Fat Guys on Fantasy update. You can catch us on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday at 8 to 9 p.m. Next week, we'll be doing more top 10 lists. This week was the... running backs. Next week, we're going to go to wide receivers and quarterbacks. Don't know which one yet, but tune in, and we'll see you there.